Charlotte Ashford stood at the edge of Almac's grand ballroom, her gloved hands clasped tightly before her. It was April 1815, the height of London's social season, and she knew with painful certainty that this would be her last. At 24, with 6 failed seasons behind her and her family's modest fortune nearly depleted, she had become what every unmarried woman dreaded, a cautionary tale. She touched her hair self-consciously, though she had long since stopped hoping the gesture would somehow change what she found there. Silver grey, every strand, though she was barely past girlhood. The fever that had nearly killed her at 18 had left this permanent mark, making her appear decades older than her years. The Ton had not been kind about it. Around her, the ballroom glittered with youth and beauty. Debutantes in pastel silks laughed behind their fans, their eyes bright with hope and possibility. Charlotte had once looked at the world that way. Now she simply endured. Miss Ashford. Lady Margaret Winters appeared at her elbow, the only true friend Charlotte had found in 6 years of social torture. The widow was 35, and wealthy enough not to need a husband, which made her refreshingly honest. "You look lovely tonight." Charlotte managed a small smile. "You are kind, as always." "I am truthful." Lady Margaret's eyes narrowed as she looked across the room. "And I see Lady Cordelia approaching with her usual entourage. Shall we move toward the refreshments?" But it was too late. "Miss Ashford?" Lady Cordelia Hartwell's voice carried across the nearby conversation, sweet as poisoned honey. She was 19, beautiful and cruel in the way only those who had never known hardship could be. "How wonderful to see you again. I was just telling the other girls. We had no idea you would be here tonight." Charlotte felt the circle forming around her. 5 young women, all lovely, all smiling with teeth that belonged to wolves. She lifted her chin. "Lady Cordelia, how delightful. We were just discussing hairstyles," one of the other girls said, her eyes wide with false innocence. "The new fashion from Paris is quite elaborate." "Indeed," Cordelia agreed, moving closer. Her voice dropped to a stage whisper that half the ballroom could hear. "Though I suppose some styles are more challenging than others to arrange. Tell me, Miss Ashford, have you considered wearing a wig?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Charlotte felt the blood drain from her face. Around them, conversation stuttered and died. Eyes turned their way. "A wig?" Charlotte's voice was steady, though her hands trembled. "Oh, I only suggest it out of concern." Cordelia's smile was radiant. "There are such lovely ones available now. No one would ever know. You could look like the rest of us." She paused delicately. "Young." Laughter rippled through the circle. Not loud, not obvious enough to draw censure, but unmistakable. Charlotte heard it echo through the ballroom, saw the pitying glances, the averted eyes of those who wanted no part of her humiliation. "That is quite enough." Lady Margaret's voice cut through the mockery. "Lady Cordelia, your manners are showing, or rather, your lack of them." But Cordelia was already gliding away, her friends following like ducklings. Their laughter floated back, light and careless. "The widow phantom," Charlotte heard one of them say. "Perhaps she should haunt somewhere else." The ballroom felt suddenly airless. Charlotte's vision blurred at the edges. She had endured 6 years of this. 6 years of mockery, of pity, of being invisible one moment and cruelly visible the next. And she could not bear another second of it. "Excuse me," she whispered to Lady Margaret, and fled. The terrace was blessedly empty and cool. Charlotte reached the stone balustrade and gripped it hard, gulping air. She would not cry. She had promised herself years ago that she would never give them the satisfaction. But alone, in the darkness, the tears came anyway. Forgive me. I did not mean to intrude. Charlotte spun around, hastily wiping her eyes. A man stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the ballroom light. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in evening clothes that spoke of wealth and taste. As he stepped forward, moonlight caught his face. Strong features, dark hair, eyes that seemed to see too much. Your Grace. She recognized him instantly, though they had never been introduced. Everyone knew Sebastian Blackwood, Duke of Ashbourne. He had been away at war for years and returned only months ago. Every ambitious mama in London was hunting him for her daughter. You know me. His voice was deep, quiet, not mocking, simply observing. Everyone knows you. Charlotte tried to compose herself, acutely aware of her tear-stained face. I apologize. I should not be out here alone. Nor should I. He moved to the balustrade, standing a respectful distance away. I find ballrooms suffocating. Too many people saying nothing of consequence. Charlotte blinked, surprised. Then why attend? Duty. The word was dry. My mother insists I must marry. She has compiled a list of suitable candidates. He glanced at her sideways. I suspect every unmarried woman in that ballroom is on it. Despite everything, Charlotte felt a ghost of a smile. Not every woman, Your Grace. No? Some of us are considered thoroughly unsuitable. He studied her face in the moonlight. Charlotte resisted the urge to touch her hair. Let him see it. Let him judge and dismiss her like everyone else. At least then she could return inside and endure the rest of this wretched evening. But he did not look away. I heard what they said to you. Lady Cordelia and her companions. Shame burned through her. You heard? Yes. His voice was quiet but firm. It was cruel. It was honest. The words escaped before she could stop them. I do look old. My hair is silver. He interrupted her gently. Like moonlight. Charlotte's breath caught. She searched his face for mockery and found none. Only a kind of tired sincerity that made her chest ache. Will you return to the ballroom? He asked. Everything in her wanted to refuse, to flee home and never show her face in society again. But Charlotte Ashford had not survived 6 seasons by being a coward. Yes, she said quietly. I will. He offered his arm. Then permit me to escort you. She hesitated. Being seen with the Duke would only fuel speculation and likely more mockery when he inevitably moved on to more suitable companions. But his eyes were steady, patient, waiting. Charlotte placed her hand on his arm. They entered the ballroom together. The effect was instantaneous. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Charlotte felt the weight of every eye in the room, but the Duke's pace never faltered. He led her directly to the dance floor as a waltz began. Miss Ashford, he said formally, loudly enough for those nearby to hear, would you do me the honor of this dance? She could only stare at him. Around them, the shock was palpable. Lady Cordelia's face had gone white. The Duke's mother looked ready to faint. Charlotte's voice failed her. Please, he said more quietly, for her ears alone. Unless you do not wish to. She thought of Lady Cordelia's mocking laughter, of 6 years of invisibility and scorn, of this man who had called her hair silver like moonlight and looked at her as if she were worth seeing. Charlotte placed her hand in his. Yes, Your Grace, I would be honored. As they began to dance, she wondered what game he was playing. And more frighteningly, she wondered what would happen when it inevitably ended. The waltz should have been a single dance, a moment of charity that would fuel gossip for a week before being forgotten. Instead, when the music ended, the Duke did not release her hand. Shall we continue? He asked. Charlotte's heart hammered. Your Grace, you do not need to— Sebastian, he corrected quietly. And I am aware of what I need to do, Miss Ashford. What I wish to do is dance with you. They danced the next set, and the next. By the fourth dance, the ballroom was alive with whispers. Charlotte saw Lady Cordelia in furious conversation with her mother, saw the Dowager Duchess making her way purposefully towards them, only to be intercepted by some matron Charlotte did not recognize. "You are causing a scandal," Charlotte whispered as they turned through the figures of a country dance. "Good." His hand was warm on her waist. "The ton needs more scandals of substance." Substance? Yes, as opposed to who wore the wrong colour to which tea party. He met her eyes. "Tell me something real, Miss Ashford. What do you think of when you are alone?" The question caught her off guard. No one asked her things like that. No one asked her anything that mattered. I read. History mostly. Philosophy sometimes." His eyes lit with genuine interest. "Have you read Wollstonecraft? A Vindication of the Rights of Woman?" Charlotte felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Yes, though I should probably not admit that in polite company." "Why not?" "It is considered rather radical, unsuitable for unmarried ladies. I fought beside men in Spain who could not read their own names." Sebastian said quietly. They died bleeding in mud while aristocrats in London argued about which books were suitable for whom. Forgive me if I find such concerns trivial." Charlotte stared at him. There was pain in his voice, carefully controlled but unmistakable. "The war changed you." "Yes." They moved through the dance in silence for a moment. Then he added, "It made me see clearly. The things society values, beauty, youth, perfect manners, they mean nothing. What matters is courage, integrity, the strength to remain yourself when the world demands you be someone else." She felt those words like a hand around her heart. That is a rare philosophy among the ton. Perhaps that is why I find the ton exhausting. He smiled slightly. Present company excluded, of course. The dance ended. The evening ended. Sebastian escorted Charlotte to her mother, who looked ready to combust with hope and confusion. He bowed formally over Charlotte's hand, his lips brushing her glove. "Thank you, Miss Ashford. It has been the most pleasant evening I have spent since returning to England." When his carriage disappeared into the London night, Charlotte stood on the steps of Almack's, the spring air cool on her flushed face. Lady Margaret appeared beside her. "Well?" her friend said softly. "That was unexpected." Charlotte touched her lips, remembering the pressure of his kiss through her glove. "Yes," she whispered. "Unexpected." But as her own carriage carried her home, doubt crept in. The Duke of Ashbourne could have any woman in England. Why would he truly want one the world had labelled unwanted? It must be pity. Or worse, some kind of wager. She would not let herself hope. Hope was too dangerous. 3 days later, Sebastian called on her. Charlotte's mother was beside herself, fussing over tea arrangements and seating positions. "The Duke of Ashbourne, in our drawing room. Charlotte, sit up straighter. No, not there. The light is better by the window. Oh dear, should I have ordered better cakes?" "Mama, please." Charlotte's own nerves were stretched thin. She had not slept properly since the ball, replaying every moment, every word, trying to solve the puzzle of why he had chosen her. When Sebastian was announced, he filled the small drawing room with his presence. He greeted her mother with perfect courtesy, admired the modest furnishings with apparent sincerity, and turned to Charlotte with a smile that made her stomach flutter. "Miss Ashford, I hope I am not intruding." "Not at all, Your Grace." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "We are honoured by your visit." Tea was painful. Her mother asked increasingly desperate questions about his estate, his travels, his family. Sebastian answered patiently, but his eyes kept returning to Charlotte. Finally, after an eternity, he said, "Mrs. Ashford, I wonder if I might impose upon your generosity. The weather is fine, and I thought Miss Ashford might enjoy a ride in Hyde Park, with Lady Margaret as chaperone, of course, if that lady would be willing." Lady Margaret, who had been summoned by frantic note an hour earlier, smiled serenely. "I would be delighted, Your Grace." Charlotte's mother looked ready to weep with joy. "Yes, of course. What a wonderful idea." Half an hour later, Charlotte was on horseback for the first time in months, her riding habit brushed hastily and her hair pinned severely beneath her hat. Sebastian rode beside her, Lady Margaret following at a discreet distance. "Thank you," Charlotte said quietly, "for rescuing me from that tea. Was rescue needed? My mother was 3 minutes from producing my childhood drawings and baby clothes." He laughed, a real laugh that transformed his serious face. "Then I am glad I intervened, though I confess I had selfish motives." "Oh?" "I wish to speak with you, away from ballrooms and gossip and watchful eyes." They rode in silence for a moment. Then he said, "Tell me about your hair." Charlotte's hands tightened on the reins. "There is little to tell. I had a fever at 18. When I recovered, it was like this." It must have been frightening. No one had ever said that before. They had called it unfortunate, pitiable, a tragedy. But no one had acknowledged that she had been frightened, that she had woken from delirium to find herself transformed, made strange in her own skin. "Yes," she whispered. "It was terrifying. You survived." His voice was gentle but firm. "That requires strength. The Ton does not see it that way. The Ton is full of fools who have never faced real hardship." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "In Spain, I saw men lose limbs, eyes, their very minds to the horror of war. They were no less valuable for their scars. If anything, those wounds proved their courage." Charlotte looked at him, really looked, saw the shadows in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. "You saw terrible things." "Yes." The word was heavy. "My best friend died in my arms at Waterloo. He was 23. He had a sister waiting for him in Cornwall who used to send him letters full of ridiculous gossip to make him laugh." Sebastian's voice roughened. The last thing he said was her name. "I am sorry." The words were inadequate, but she meant them. "I tell you this because I need you to understand." He turned to her, his eyes intense. "I came home to a world that cares about seating arrangements and dance cards and who has the prettiest face. It feels obscene. After watching good men die, I cannot pretend these things matter. Then why participate at all? Because I must marry. I must produce an heir. It is my duty." He paused. "But I refuse to marry someone whose greatest accomplishment is looking beautiful in a ballroom." Charlotte's throat tightened. "Your Grace—" "Sebastian," he interrupted. "Please, when we are private, call me Sebastian." "Sebastian?" His name felt intimate on her tongue. "Why me? There are dozens of suitable young women, beautiful women, women without—" She gestured helplessly at herself. "Without what? Without courage?" His voice was fierce now. "Do you know what I saw when I watched you at Almack's? I saw you endure public cruelty with dignity. I saw you retreat to compose yourself, then return with your head high. That is bravery, Charlotte. Real bravery. Not the performative kind that exists only when someone is watching." She could not breathe, could not think. "You cannot mean that." "I mean every word." They had reached a quiet corner of the park, shaded by ancient oaks. Sebastian dismounted and came to help her down. His hands on her waist were steady, strong. When her feet touched the ground, he did not immediately step back. Lady Margaret, bless her, remained on her horse at a distance that was chaperoning in the strictest technical sense while providing the illusion of privacy. "Charlotte," Sebastian said quietly, "may I be honest with you? Please. I find you fascinating. Your mind, your strength, your refusal to bow to the world's cruelty." He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched a strand of her hair that had escaped its pins. "And yes, I find you beautiful. This silver hair that catches light like water. It is unique. Like you. You cannot truly believe that." But her voice shook. "I have lied about many things in my life," he said softly, "but never about what I find beautiful." He was going to kiss her. Charlotte saw the intention in his eyes, felt it in the air between them. Every rational thought told her to step back, to protect herself from the inevitable pain when this fantasy ended. But she did not step back. Sebastian leaned closer. His breath ghosted across her lips. Charlotte's eyes fluttered closed. Lady Margaret coughed diplomatically. "I believe the park is becoming rather crowded, Your Grace." They sprang apart. Sebastian looked ready to murder someone, possibly Lady Margaret. But Charlotte's friend was right. Several carriages had appeared on the nearby path, their occupants craning their necks with obvious interest. "Of course." Sebastian's voice was strained. "We should return." The ride back was silent, but his eyes kept finding hers. And Charlotte, despite every warning her mind screamed, felt hope beginning to bloom in her chest like a dangerous flower. Perhaps impossibly, this was real. A week later, that hope shattered. The ball at Ashbourne House was the event of the season. Every member of the ton who mattered had received an invitation, and Charlotte's mother had nearly fainted when theirs arrived. Charlotte dressed with trembling hands, choosing her finest gown, pale blue silk that she knew made her hair look even more silver. She would not hide any more. If Sebastian truly meant what he said, she would believe him. The ballroom at Ashbourne House was magnificent, all crystal chandeliers and gilt mouldings. Charlotte entered on Lady Margaret's arm and immediately felt the weight of watching eyes. The Dowager Duchess stood near the entrance, receiving guests with icy politeness. When Charlotte approached, the Dowager's smile was thin. "Miss Ashford, how unexpected to see you here." "Your Grace." Charlotte curtsied. "Thank you for the invitation." "Oh, I am certain my son was responsible for that." The older woman's eyes were cold. "He has been behaving quite oddly since his return from the continent. I do hope it passes soon." The words were a slap disguised as a comment. Charlotte felt her confidence waver. Before she could respond, Sebastian appeared. "Mother." His voice was cooler than Charlotte had ever heard it. "Miss Ashford, Lady Margaret, how wonderful that you could attend." He offered Charlotte his arm. "Will you walk with me?" They had barely taken 3 steps when the Dowager Duchess spoke again, her voice carrying. "Sebastian, dear, Lady Cordelia is here. Her mother is most eager for you to meet her properly." Charlotte felt him tense beside her, but he did not stop walking. "I am otherwise engaged, Mother." The evening should have been perfect. Sebastian remained at Charlotte's side, attentive and warm. They danced, they talked, and with every moment, Charlotte felt herself falling further into impossible hope. Then the Dowager Duchess found her alone. Charlotte had stepped into the conservatory for air, and suddenly the older woman was there, materializing like a calculating ghost. "Miss Ashford, how fortuitous. I have been hoping for a private word." Every instinct told Charlotte to flee. She forced herself to remain still. "Your Grace, let us speak plainly, shall we?" The Dowager's smile did not reach her eyes. "You seem like a sensible girl, despite your circumstances, so I will be honest with you." "Please do." Charlotte's voice was steadier than her hands. "My son needs a wife. A proper wife, someone young, healthy, capable of providing heirs. The dowager paused delicately. Someone whose constitution is not questionable. Questionable. Your hair, dear. Silver at such a young age. It suggests a certain fragility, does it not? A weakness of blood. The words were clinically cruel. The Ashbourne line requires vigor, strength. Charlotte felt something inside her crack. I see. I am certain you do. The dowager's voice softened in a way that was somehow worse than her coldness. You must know Sebastian feels pity for you. He has always been soft-hearted, especially since the war. He sees a wounded creature and wishes to help. She touched Charlotte's arm lightly. But pity is not love, Miss Ashford, and it is certainly not a foundation for marriage. Does the Duke know you are speaking to me? Of course not, but I am his mother. I know him better than anyone. The dowager glanced toward the ballroom. Look at Lady Cordelia. Beautiful, accomplished, from impeccable lineage. She would make a perfect duchess. Can you honestly say you would not be doing Sebastian a kindness by removing yourself from his distraction? Charlotte could not speak. The words had found every fear she had been trying to suppress and made them real. Think on it, dear. The Dowager Duchess glided away, leaving Charlotte alone among the exotic plants, feeling as if she had been carefully filleted. She returned to the ballroom in a daze. Sebastian was across the room, and Charlotte watched as the Dowager presented Lady Cordelia to him. The young woman was radiant in pink silk, her golden hair catching the candle light. She smiled up at Sebastian with practiced charm. He looked uncomfortable but polite. His mother whispered something in his ear. He glanced around the room, his eyes searching, and Charlotte knew he was looking for her. She should go to him. But the dowager's words echoed in her mind. Pity is not love. What if it was true? What if this entire impossible fairy tale was simply Sebastian's damaged heart trying to save something? Someone, as penance for those he could not save in war? Charlotte could not bear to be someone's penance. Lady Margaret, she whispered when her friend appeared beside her. I need to leave. What happened? Please, I cannot be here any more. Lady Margaret asked no more questions. Within minutes, they were making their excuses and departing. As their carriage pulled away, Charlotte looked back at Ashbourne House, glittering like a jewel in the darkness. Through a window, she could see Sebastian. He stood alone now, scanning the crowd with increasing urgency. Looking for her. Charlotte turned away and let the tears come. For 2 days, Charlotte refused to see anyone. She sent notes declining social engagements, ignored her mother's increasingly frantic questions, and spent her time staring at nothing, while Lady Margaret sat quietly nearby, offering silent support. On the 3rd day, Sebastian found her. Lady Margaret's house had a small garden, private and peaceful. Charlotte was sitting on a bench beneath a flowering cherry tree, a book unopened in her lap, when she heard footsteps on the gravel path. She looked up. Sebastian stood there, still in his riding clothes, his hair wind-blown and his expression stormy. Your Grace. She started to rise, but he held up a hand. Do not. His voice was rough. Do not run from me again, Charlotte. Please. I was not running. You left my ball without a word. You have refused to see me for 3 days. He moved closer, his eyes intense. What happened? Charlotte looked away. The cherry blossoms were falling, pink petals drifting on the breeze. Nothing happened. Do not lie to me. He sat beside her on the bench, not touching but close enough that she could feel his warmth. I saw you go into the conservatory. When you returned, everything had changed. Did someone say something to you? She could not answer. Her throat was too tight. Was it my mother? His voice went deadly quiet. Charlotte, look at me. Was it my mother? The tears came before she could stop them. She said you pity me, that I am a distraction born of your guilt over the war, that my hair proves I am too weak to bear healthy children. The words tumbled out in a rush. And she is right, is she not? You could have anyone. Lady Cordelia is perfect. Beautiful, young, strong. Everything a duchess should be. Stop! Sebastian's voice cracked like a whip. Stop saying those things. Why? Because they are true? Because they are lies. He turned to her, his hands gripping her shoulders. Charlotte, listen to me. My mother is a manipulative woman who values appearances above all else. She would have me marry a beautiful ninny who could not hold a real conversation if her life depended on it, because that is what she thinks a duchess should be. Perhaps she is right. She is not. His hands gentled, though his eyes remained fierce. Do you want to know what I see when I look at Lady Cordelia? I see someone who has never faced hardship, who has never been tested, who would crumble the moment life became difficult. He paused. When I look at you, I see someone who has been tested every day for 6 years and has never broken. That is strength, Charlotte. Real strength. Your mother said, "My mother knows nothing." Sebastian's voice was low and intense. In Spain, I watched men die in my arms. Good men, brave men, and I survived when they did not, and I have spent every day since wondering why. Why I was spared when they were not. Sebastian. I came back to England empty, hollowed out by loss and guilt and the utter meaninglessness of society's petty concerns. His hands moved to cup her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. And then I saw you on that terrace, crying but refusing to break. And I thought, here is someone who understands what it means to survive. Here is someone real. You do not have to say these things. I am not saying them because I have to. His thumbs brushed away her tears. I am saying them because they are true. Charlotte, I am not a good man. I have killed. I have watched friends die and done nothing. I have nightmares that wake me screaming. That does not make you bad. Perhaps not, but it makes me broken. His voice dropped to a whisper. And I need someone strong enough to bear that brokenness with me. Someone who will not shatter at the weight of it. Charlotte's heart was hammering so hard she could barely breathe. Why me? Because you already know what it is to carry scars. Because you face the world's cruelty every day and do not yield. He leaned his forehead against hers. Because when I am with you, I feel less empty. Sebastian. His name was a prayer, a question, a plea. I know I am asking too much. I know you could say no, and perhaps you should. I am not the fairy tale prince from a storybook. I am damaged and difficult and... Charlotte kissed him. She had never kissed anyone before, and she did it clumsily, desperately, pouring 6 years of loneliness and longing into the press of her lips against his. For a heartbeat, he went still. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close, and he kissed her back with a hunger that made her dizzy. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Charlotte could not stop the sob that escaped her. Your hair does not disgust you? Truly? It is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. He pressed his lips to her temple, her cheek, the corner of her mouth. Silver moonlight, unique, precious. And you do not pity me? Pity you? He pulled back to look at her, his eyes blazing. Charlotte, I am in awe of you. You terrify me, actually, because I need you in a way I have never needed anything, and if you refuse me, I do not know how I will survive it. She stared at him, this powerful duke who commanded respect wherever he went, admitting vulnerability as if it cost him nothing, as if she were worth the cost. I will not refuse you, she whispered. Something like relief flooded his face. He slid from the bench to kneel before her in the grass, his hands clasping hers. Charlotte Ashford. His voice shook slightly. I am not offering you an easy life. My mother will be difficult. Society will gossip. There will be challenges. I know. But I swear to you, I will face every challenge at your side. I will defend you against anyone who dares mock you. I will spend every day proving that you are valued, treasured, loved. He paused. Because I do love you. I think I have loved you since I saw you on that terrace, refusing to let the world break you. Charlotte could not speak through her tears. She could only nod. Then will you marry me? Will you be my Duchess, my partner, my wife? Yes. The word came out choked. Yes, Sebastian. Yes. He surged up and kissed her again, deeper this time, with a promise of everything to come. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying at once, Sebastian touched her hair with infinite gentleness. Silver in the sunlight. He murmured. Like you were dipped in starlight. How could anyone think this was anything but beautiful? Charlotte leaned into his touch, finally believing. 6 months later, the Duchess of Ashbourne stood in the drawing room of Ashbourne House, directing servants in the preparation for a dinner party. Her silver hair was dressed elegantly, catching the lamplight, and her blue silk gown was the height of fashion. The flowers should go there, she told the footman, pointing to the mantelpiece, and ensure the fire is built up. Lady Margaret feels the cold. Yes, Your Grace. Charlotte smiled. She would never quite get used to being called Your Grace, but she had learned to carry the title with the same quiet dignity she had carried everything else in her life. You are enjoying this far too much. Sebastian appeared behind her, his arms sliding around her waist. Playing Duchess. I am a Duchess, she reminded him, leaning back against his chest. Your Duchess. My everything. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Are you nervous about tonight? Should I be? The guest list was small but significant. Lady Margaret, of course, a few of Sebastian's closest friends from the war, and at Charlotte's insistence, the Dowager Duchess, who had been coolly civil since the engagement was announced. Mother will behave, Sebastian said, reading her thoughts. I have made it abundantly clear that any disrespect toward you will result in her removal from this house. You did not. I did. He turned her in his arms, his eyes soft. I meant what I said, Charlotte. I will defend you against anyone. I know. She touched his face. But I can also defend myself. I know that too. He grinned. It is one of your most attractive qualities. The dinner party was a success. Lady Margaret was in fine form, trading witticisms with Sebastian's friends. The Dowager Duchess maintained her icy politeness, though Charlotte caught her watching them with something that might have been grudging respect when Sebastian laughed at something Charlotte said. It was after dinner, when the ladies had withdrawn to the drawing-room, that Lady Cordelia Hartwell appeared. Charlotte had not expected her. The invitation had been declined weeks ago. But here she was, announced by the butler, resplendent in rose silk, and accompanied by her equally surprised mother. Your Grace. Cordelia's curtsy was perfunctory. I apologize for the intrusion. We were passing and saw the carriages. I thought perhaps... She trailed off, her eyes taking in Charlotte's confidence, her ease in her own home, the way the other ladies deferred to her naturally. Lady Cordelia. Charlotte's voice was pleasant but cool. What a surprise. I wanted to offer my congratulations, Cordelia said, though her smile did not reach her eyes. On your marriage. It was quite unexpected. Was it? Charlotte met her gaze steadily. Perhaps to some. The room had gone silent. Lady Margaret watched with barely concealed delight. The Dowager Duchess's expression was unreadable. Cordelia's mask of pleasantness cracked slightly. I only meant... I know what you meant, Lady Cordelia. Charlotte rose, moving with the quiet authority she had learned over 6 months of being Duchess. You meant that a woman like me should not have won a man like the Duke, that my hair, my age, my lack of conventional beauty should have disqualified me. Cordelia's face flushed. I never said— You did not need to say it. You showed it quite clearly at Almack's, as did so many others. Charlotte paused, then smiled genuinely. But you were wrong, all of you, because the Duke did not choose me despite my silver hair. He chose me, in part, because of it. I do not understand. I know. Charlotte's voice gentled slightly. And perhaps someday you will, but for now I think it best if you go. Cordelia left, her mother trailing behind her, both looking thoroughly confused, when